Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. So I'm watching podcasts and just bumming around the internet. I feel like I see over and over again that you can't work for the government unless you sign something called a BDS, and like you can't say certain things about Israel. Like, is that true, or like what's going on with that?
Yeah, I've heard that too. So I did the research on this, and we're going to break down what's true of that and what's not. Some of it's not true.
Okay.
And some of it is, and some of it is intended to be true.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about what BDS is first. So BDS stands for Boycott, Divest, and Sanction.
Okay.
And it's talking about specifically Israel. So boycotting Israel and stuff like that. But it's also boycotting companies that work with Israel to oppress the Palestinians. Now, this is the BDS movement is a Palestinian-led movement.
Okay.
It's not like an Arab movement. It's not like an anti-Semitic movement. It's just a Palestinian movement.
Oh, so you're signing an anti-BDS saying you won't do this,
right?
Because pro-BDS is Palestinian. Okay,
right.
I'm with you.
And so the first link in the below takes you to the BDS website by the Palestinians. Okay. And it describes itself. It says the Palestinian BDS National Committee, or the BNC, calls for a boycott of Israeli and international companies that are complicit in violations of Palestinian rights. Virtually all Israeli companies are complicit to some degree in Israel's system of occupation and apartheid. We focus our boycotts on a small number of companies and products for maximum impact. We focus on companies that play a clear and direct role in Israel's crimes and where we think we can have an impact. So keep in mind, I think it was 2020 that 3 humanitarian organizations, when Israel backed out of the peace process and said no two-state, no one state, they said this is officially a state of apartheid right now.
Oh, you mentioned that.
So there's one country in the world that lives in a state of apartheid, a human rights violation per international law. I don't care for the international law, but I'm just stating what it is. So they're right in this. Now imagine you're the anti-BDS people and you're like, we need to keep the apartheid. We need more apartheid.
But that one country is Israel.
Yeah, the one country is Israel.
Yeah.
Right. And so like in the US, you're like, we need more apartheid, more racism. That's where the government's going with this. And so I'll put them on the screen, but there's some examples. I'm just going to tell you the more famous ones that they're asking you to boycott. HP, Hewlett-Packard, helps run the biometric ID system that Israel uses to restrict Palestinian movement. So don't buy HP printers, they're saying. Siemens is complicit in apartheid Israel's illegal settlement enterprise through its planned construction of the Euro-Asia interconnector. This will link Israel's electricity grid with Europe's, allowing illegal settlements on stolen Palestinian land to benefit from Israel/EU trade of electricity produced from fossil gas. # stop fueling Israel apartheid. Puma sponsors the Israel Football Association, which includes teams in Israel's illegal settlements on occupied Palestinian land. The other ones are less notable, but it's like Israel fruits and vegetables and stuff, probably regional stuff.
Yeah.
We're talking about probably being sold to Europe. Okay, so, and I didn't know those companies were involved.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Who do you BDS if you want a BDS?
Right.
Or who are the anti-BDS people trying to stop you from BDSing? Well, there's a couple examples. And so those are only a couple examples because they try to focus people on those.
Sure.
And if another company steps up and says, we're thinking about sponsoring, then they're going to throw them on there.
Okay.
So let's talk about anti-BDS laws from just a federal government. We're not going to go into state governments. We're just going to talk federal. Okay? So this is called the Combating BDS Act. It was introduced in 2019. This is Washington, D.C. for the entire country. Primary sponsor is Marco Rubio. Co-sponsor Mitch McConnell and others that you've never heard of. Well, I've never heard of. Okay.
So Rubio's Republican, right?
Yes, Florida.
So this is like the Christians supporting...
It's the Christians supporting apartheid in Israel.
Wow, because they're God's chosen people. Okay.
God's chosen people. As there's over 20,000 dead as of filming this.
Wow.
Of which over half are children. So, okay. There's that. So remember, it was introduced in January 2019. On February 5th, 2020, it passed in the Senate 77-23, with 22 Democrats and Rand Paul voting nay.
Okay.
So these are the people that AIPAC's going to get out of office because they hate Israel. By that, they mean they don't like apartheid. Rand Paul did a whole speech, but I'm just going to tell you the first part of the speech. Quote, "We boycotted English tea to found a country, ... Okay?
Yeah.
It's just pretty simple.
Totally.
So now in references down below, I've got a Lawfare article from the Lawfare website. It's called Breaking Down the Combating BDS Act of 2019 and First Amendment Challenge to State Anti-BDS Laws. So I'm going to put this on the screen. It says on February 5th, the Senate passed a package of Middle East policy bills, including the Combating BDS Act of 2019. The act, which would affect laws on the books in 26 states that prevent state and local governments from doing business with entities that boycott Israel, has reignited debate over whether lawmakers' efforts to stimulate the boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) movement against Israel violate the First Amendment.
Okay. Which, I mean, it seems like it clearly does.
Yeah. Okay. So they're tricking you here. This is a little trick in this article. Lawfare.
Okay.
Lawfare is doing some propaganda fair, we'll say. So when it says the act which would affect laws on the books in 26 states, 26 states is a hyperlink. Click on that. That takes you to an Intercept article, right? And it's titled, "A Texas Elementary School Speech Pathologist Refused to Sign a Pro-Israel Oath, Now Mandatory in Many States, so she lost her job. ... Subheading, a major attack on the First Amendment. No credible advocate of free expression can remain silent about this, quote, free speech exception for Israel." So it's interesting. So the 26 states, it says, the act which would affect laws on the books in 26 states that prevent state and local governments from doing business. So the 26 states have anti-BDS laws already.
Right.
So they're lying to you.
Okay, so it's 24 states maybe. Or...
Yeah, but I think it would only do the federal government. I don't know if it would do the state government, but
Okay.
keep in mind 26 states are already on board with anti-BDS laws, like that lady who got fired. Anyways, Marco Rubio says that the proposed law would, quote, empower state and local governments in the United States to counter the anti-Israel boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, discriminatory economic warfare against the Jewish state, end quote.
Why is it there any of their business who individual person boycotts?
It's insanity. Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Risch added that the bill is, quote, is vital to ... end discrimination against Israel. The Combating BDS Act is a top legislative priority to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, which published a memo asserting that, quote, the legislation in no way impedes the right of any American to boycott or criticize Israel. Opposite truth. In Jewish speak, that's actually true, though, honestly. Others have disagreed with this reading of the legislation. Lara Friedman, in 3 parentheses, of the Foundation for Middle East, who tracks Israel-related legislation in Congress, offered a fact check of the AIPAC memo, writing, the purpose of the Combating BDS Act is to give political and legal cover to and encouragement for state laws that violate the First Amendment of the Constitution. So the Jewish lady comes in and says, it's the opposite. The opposite of what AIPAC is saying is true, because AIPAC is wonderful. Okay. Yeah. So basically, this law is not on the books, though. So it's passed the Senate in 2020. They can't get it through the House. They keep like, how can we reconfigure the House so we can get this done? They're trying. It's still just waiting for the House to vote on it. You just need the right House.
Interesting.
So that, you got Mike Johnson, who loves Israel first. Maybe if you get Israel First Trump in or something, maybe you can finagle it.
I hear he loves Israel.
Put it on the screen right now. Here it goes.
Well, I love Israel. I love Israel.
Okay, so then I'm like, I got to know. Let's do Florida. I'm not going to do every state. Let's just do Florida.
Yeah, DeSantis. Yeah.
Ron DeSantis. Okay. So, link below to the Florida government website. Quote, Florida will hold, this is Ron DeSantis quoting, quote, Florida will hold companies accountable for discriminating against Israel. We will continue to invest in companies that provide Floridians with the best return on investment and not companies that utilize arbitrary ESG metrics to advance a BDS agenda. False. They're not using ESG to advance BDS. That is false. You're saying, hey, conservatives, you're morons. You don't like ESG? You don't like BDS. 2 totally different things.
Right.
BDS has nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has nothing to do with it. You're a fork-tongued liar.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's complete and total trash. So, Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Petronas of Florida says, quote, if you want to do business with the state of Florida, you cannot support BDS policies against Israel, or you will face the consequence. So basically what happens is they have a law in place. I couldn't find the exact name of the law because it's all obfuscated. But basically, if the SBA places a business on the scrutinized companies and boycott Israel list, then if a company does not clarify its business practices or ceases its boycott of Israel within 90 days of being placed on the list, it becomes subject to a divestment investment prohibition, and the state of Florida will not contract with the company or its subsidiaries. Absolutely insane.
It's crazy.
It's absurd.
You have to have our values or you can't do business.
No, you have to have Israel's values. It has nothing to do with us.
Yes, fair.
United States, American citizens, white folk, black folk. It's just Israel's interests have to be number one if you want to do business with Florida.
Wow.
It's amazing. Like, we should have known. He signed multiple bills, and
right.
It's not a surprise.
Yeah.
I just had to know on that one. And then link in the description below to the Harvard Law Review. So, as of this article being published, because it's hard to find out exactly which states have these laws because it's all obfuscated, even if you go to Yandex. So this article was done in February 2020, and it said in the article, since 2014, 27 states have adopted laws penalizing businesses' participation in the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, sanctions, BDS movement, and such laws are pending in another 14 states. So what do you think about that?
It's incredible how many there are.
27 plus 14. If my math is correct, that's 41 out of 50 states loyal to Israel first.
Wow.
It's amazing. And see, it's not like the representative of Wyoming cares a lick about Israel. It's that they don't want to get AIPAC'd because AIPAC controls all the legislation in this country. It's amazing.
But they're also representing their constituents who are majority conservative Christian. I'm guessing if you look at a map of this, it's going to be the middle of the United States. Is where all the states are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be because it was Democrats voting against.
How different would this be if Jews hadn't finagled Christians to back them? You know what I mean? Would this even be possible? Because it was Democrats that didn't vote on it, that didn't vote for it.
But still, if the people kind of didn't want it, the politicians would still do it because of AIPAC.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's probably fair.
Because the people aren't funding their local person and
right.
Their representative in Wyoming. They're not getting much money.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, $3 million from AIPAC, and you're in business.
Sure.
Against your opponent who has $700,000 total from grassroots.
Yeah.
You know? This is my entire story.
Wow. Okay, so there is no law that you don't have to sign anything at this point to work for the government?
The federal government, correct. You do not have to.
Okay, but in these states?
27 states.
But that just applies to businesses who are being contracted? Or is that working for the government, the state government?
It's working for the state government, and it's getting contracts from the state government.
Okay, gotcha.
So the one in Florida that those quotes came from specifically was a company called Morningstar, and they had done something BDS related. And so then basically the government says, hey, you're on our exclusion list. You have 90 days to repent, go to Israel, get in front of the wall, put your funny hat on. And if you do that, you can still get state contracts. Otherwise, you're out on state contracts.
Okay.
Imagine your competition can get lucrative state contracts, but you can't.
Sure.
It can put you out of business.
Totally, yeah. Companies just rely on government contracts.
Right. And so basically, state, it's going terrible. They're trying to get it going federal. Terrible. If they had it, they would make it they would just do private businesses if they had their own way.
Oh, totally.
And maybe you're watching this a couple years later and you're like,
we should have done something.
It happened. Yeah, wish I spoke up, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, at least I have a good idea of how that's working.
The terribleness.
Right.
But
just, what's right or what's actually required and when and all that. Is there a link of what states? Is that one of your links as far as what states have these?
Yeah, that Harvard Law Review one is a long document. And you can go down there and see it's really like scholarly.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. What are your thoughts on this? It seems awful to me. Even if you're a fan of Jewish people, but from American perspective, First Amendment and all that, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, constitutionalists should be furious.
Yes.
People who hate the Constitution but just value rights for people in America should be furious.
This is just such a slippery slope of...
People who are America first should be furious.
Yep.
People who are Palestine first should be furious because there's a lot of those too.
Okay.
They just hate Israel because they just love Palestine.
Okay.
So all the people, we'll say, except for AIPAC.
Yeah.
And then,
the people they bought off.
1% of the population as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, kind of depressing, but at least we know. Give us your thoughts below, or if you have any other aspect of this that we missed, love to hear about it, and we'll see you next time.